this life ain't fair. And I know that you're going nowhere. Well, don't blame me for what you've done, because I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Well, don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Hi there, and welcome to our inaugural podcast, Clarified Realty episode 001. We're so happy that you took the time to give us a listen. I'm hoping that we'll have some great adventures ahead of us, and we'll be able to learn a lot about the great big world of real estate together. Some introductions are in order. My name is Tom Clary. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in the state of California. My practice is located specifically in the beautiful San Fernando Valley. I'm a Valley boy, born and bred. And while I handle real estate transactions in pretty much all areas of Los Angeles, downtown, Hollywood, this is really my specialty. I work with both buyers and sellers, and my office is located in the Tony and prestigious enclave of Calabasas, California. You might know it as the home of a Kardashian or two. And it's pretty much the Beverly Hills of the Los Angeles suburbs. Joining me today and on the rest of our podcast will be my friend, sidekick, and amazing lender, Ron Bruno. Hi there, Ron. Why don't you give us a little about yourself?
Tom, thank you so much. My name's Ron Bruno. I'm with the firm Guaranteed Rate here in beautiful Pasadena. I'm a Chicago guy originally, born and bred. My family moved when I was 7, grew up in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, nice little resort town. And as my wife likes to say, I'm a cabana boy. So she married a cabana boy. It is true.
It happens.
It is true.
The dream happens.
It does happen, exactly. Went to college at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and moved out here 14 years ago.
Wow, you've been here a while.
I've been here for a while. I moved originally for a girl and stayed for the weather.
Well,
yes.
Understandable. Sometimes the girls change.
It's true.
The weather here in California relatively stays the same.
It's true. And my professional background, for the first 10 years, I was in various realms in sales and marketing. My first job actually was advertising.
Okay.
And I've been in personal finance and professional services for over 8 years now, starting in wealth management and moved over to the wonderful world of residential lending.
Awesome, Ron. Well, and we'll be going more in depth with Ron in our upcoming podcast number 002, where we'll be taking more of a deep dive into mortgages and how they are really the first signpost on our trip up the mountain of home ownership. Yes, even before talking to a real estate agent like me. But for this episode, this is really going to be the two of us giving you a preview of what we're really trying to achieve here and give you an idea of what to expect moving forward. You know, when I first spoke to Ron about starting this podcast, I told him that I wanted to make sure that if we were going to to get together and talk to you guys once a week, to humbly request the gift of your very valuable attention, I wanted to make sure that we were saying something completely different. I wanted it to be something that had a completely different voice and point of view. It had to be nothing that you could hear on another real estate-centric podcast or any other real estate content. If you're going to take your very precious time to download this podcast, how could I just, give you information you could just hear in 100 of other places? And Ron and I really, talked about it, and I started circling around different concepts, and nothing we really came up was really clicking. So I thought about it, and I started thinking about all the clients I've worked with. Was there something about them that seemed to be a common thread? Was there something on either the buy side or the sell side that seemed to keep on coming up? And then it hit me. There was something that seemed to keep on coming up over and over. Every deal, for whatever reason, it just for some reason couldn't escape it. Every potential buyer I talked to was preoccupied with it. There was something here, and I thought, well, I could do something about that. And that thing that kept on coming back and back and back, fear. It's such a simple concept, but it seems to rear its ugly head constantly in real estate. I mean, everywhere I looked in my business, I saw it. Fear about timing, is now the right time to buy or sell, or should I wait until next year? Fear about inspections and disclosures. What if I buy this amazing house, but then I find out there's mold in the walls? It's the one thing that united all these deals, and it was an element of fear. And I could only imagine that this fear sets in even before the process gets started, before people even make the decision to buy or sell a home. It paralyzes them. They sit in their studio apartment all huddled up on the couch under a blanket saying, I sure would like to buy a house, but what's the best choice? Should I rent? Should I buy? What if I lose my shirt, like all those people did when the bubble burst? I'd love to start looking for a house, but then I'd have to talk to one of those awful real estate agents giving me a hard sales pitch, and I'm sure they won't leave me alone. Actually, that one is really a scary one. But look, don't get me wrong. All of these are valid concerns, but they shouldn't ever be fears. At the end of the day, buying or selling a home or a condo is not rocket surgery. Trust me, I've spoken or done transactions with agents that I would consider to be the absolute best and brightest agents in the business. I mean, the cream of the crop. And trust me, no one is mistaking them for Mensa members or Nobel laureates. If they can understand the process, so can you, right? So getting back to fear, look, let's take a look at a really good example. What do you think is the number one question I get asked over and over and over again as an agent? I mean, it's the first question anyone asks me when I walk into a party or some sort of networking event. Ron, you probably got the same story. What's the number one question you get asked whenever someone sees you that hasn't seen you for a while?
How's the market?
Yep. I mean, or is now a good time to buy? Or is now a good time to sell? I mean, am I right? I mean, it's sort of cliche.
It is. You get people asking questions about, where rates are going. What's the Fed going to do? Is now the right time? Should we wait? Are we in a bubble?
Right. And its foundation is really coming from fear. It's coming from a place of either I could lose my shirt or, am I going to make some sort of mistake? So if someone comes up to me and asks me this, and I'm talking about a person that actually wants to buy. Right, not somebody who's just kind of waffling or whatever. They actually do want to buy, but they're asking this question seriously. What they're really saying to me is, listen, Tom, if I buy my house now, will I lose my money? Fear. That's what's really at the root of it. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. About 70 to 80% of agents are not going to be exactly forthcoming about it if the market isn't going that person's way. They're going to twist it and turn it in a way that still gets you hooked. So, seriously, what do you think they're going to say, right? You think they're going to go, I don't know if you, I hope you don't like that shirt you're wearing because you're going to lose it if you buy a house right now. No. They're going to say whatever they can to get you to sign on the dotted line, period. And they are everything I despise about this business, and I'm sure you despise it too. So that's why it's so important you can find an agent who you can trust. And we'll go into this into more in depth in a future episode, ways to weed out the good agents from the bad. But right now, we're going to stay on topic about what the whole podcast is going to be about. So, and which is the fear. What can you do to reduce that paralyzing fear? Well, when I was in college at USC, I took what I guess could be considered a general philosophy course. We read Socrates and all the great philosophers, and I basically learned how to argue with people using the Socratic method, which pissed my parents off to no end, right? Because I'd come home and say, clean your room, and I'd say, is there really a room? But there's one thing that always stuck with me. In the class, we read one of these books. It was called The Protagoras by Plato. And I can't remember what the general gist of the whole thing was, but there was this one part that really stuck with me, and I think it's really important to this conversation. And in that part, Plato, he's writing as Socrates, but it's Plato, is convincing his disciples that the 5 important human virtues. There was courage, temperance, holiness, justice, and wisdom are all just names for the same exact thing. And his disciples, they're go crazy. They disagree with him. Oh, whoa, Socrates, How could these be the same things? How on earth could courage and wisdom be the same thing? That makes absolutely no sense. But then Socrates, or Plato, goes through and systematically proves it. If someone has knowledge of the battlefield, they in turn have courage. If they make themselves educated about successful tactics and successful strategies, they have courage. Or should we say a lack of fear, right? What Plato was trying to really teach us was that cowardice is really ignorance. And more importantly, even ignorance is cowardice. So
that's deep.
A little bit. I don't want to go deep. It's a little deep, but I'll tell you something. It struck me so hard, even when I was 18, that I still carry it around with me every single day. That basically, the more knowledge that I have, the more courageous I'm going to be. So anyway, if we look at real estate from this perspective, who do you think are the folks out there that aren't afraid? Well, it's the guy or girl with the most knowledge about the real estate market and real estate, period. They're the ones that have, taken the time to educate themselves. The person who understands the battlefield, as it were. They understand that fear keeps the scaredy cats on the sidelines while they jump in and they grab all the best deals. Look, after the crash, it's understandable that people got skittish. I get it. People watched as friends and family, lost their homes and lives were turned upside down. It only makes sense that there would be a level of fear when people thought about the possibility of re-entering the market. But here's the thing. There were a lot of people who took advantage of this. They sat back until everyone was so afraid to buy, and they swept in and basically bought everything with four walls, usually with cash. Now what do we have? Well, now there's still a lack of inventory out there. We went from months worth of shadow inventory just sitting there to basically being in the desert looking for an affordable glass of water. We're dealing with a housing shortage, at least here in Los Angeles and the San Fernando Valley, that has made home prices climb and climb. Sure, I'm starting to kind of see that stabilize a bit, but when things were all scary out there were very few people that came in, investors, that took advantage of that atmosphere of fear and ate our lunch. Look, I'm going to come right out here, and I'm going to let you know that I'm firmly in the camp of folks who believe that home ownership is a good thing. It would be sort of weird for a real estate agent to be bearish on home ownership. So, right? But you buy a house, you keep it for a period of time, and you get more money than you started with. You can make changes and additions that add value, and historically, we're talking about an asset that appreciates. It gets more valuable as time goes on. Not to mention, you don't flush your money down the toilet once a month in the form of rent. When you buy a home, the money effectively goes, theoretically, back into your pocket. Yes, you need to come up with a larger portion of money to begin with in the form of a down payment, and the payment each month may be a bit more, but it's really hard to argue against the benefits.
Tom, you bring up a really good point, and back when I was in the wealth management days, I was in wealth management in 2008. You can believe that's when I actually got my start. So I timed that.
Jeez, you're old.
Absolutely perfectly. But what was really interesting is you saw people like Warren Buffett, and they saw companies and they saw stock where that company was on sale. So the value of that company didn't necessarily mean that it lost half the value. Japan, when they had the tsunami, the ETF for the Japanese economy didn't all of a sudden go away after the tsunami, and it just so happened the next day that ETF was down 25%. So real investors, they're looking at value when it's on sale. And they are, your wife, she goes to Bloomingdale's and sees something that's half off. Doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, the value of that bracelet is now half of what it's worth. No, she sees it on sale. And that's what investors do. They see things that are on sale. And when it comes to real estate and when it comes to stock, there are a lot of people see it as it's all of a sudden worth half the value.
Yeah. And we'll go. I'm going to go into that in depth a little bit later on, but he's entirely right. It's and let me get to that. But what I'm getting at is, look, I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist at all. right? I don't own a tin foil hat to keep the aliens from talking to me. And I don't think there's a 1% that is doing all they can to keep the other 99% down, at least in any sort of organized way. But because of the scarcity and the scarce nature of real estate, we're fast becoming a nation of haves and have-nots. And when I say scarce, I mean there's only so much real estate out there, folks. Housing starts aren't what they used to be. Not a lot of new houses out there. Developers aren't building like they used to. And when they're building, it's predominantly rentals, right? That's important. That means there are less and less places to buy. And if you don't jump on the train that's speeding by, you might not ever be able to get on. When the economy was burning down and everyone else was grabbing their hats and heading for the door, a lot of very smart, informed people were running toward the fire and ended up making a lot of money in the process. They didn't let fear overwhelm them. And now they're in the catbird seat, holding properties that were worth more than they were worth even 2-3 years ago. All right. Even though you're not here when we're recording this, I can already hear a lot of you, and you're basically probably saying, "Hey, buddy, I'd love to buy a house, a condo, but I can't afford it. I don't have the down payment. I don't even make that kind of money to make a monthly payment in this market." I get it. I get it. But that's not what we're talking about here. And we'll go into depth in later episodes about how you can go from having zero in the bank to saving enough for a down payment, or how you can use a down payment assistance plan to purchase a home. Ron will definitely be talking about that later. But you can make it happen if you want to. But I'm not going to BS you. It's hard freaking work and takes a lot of sacrifice. But it's totally worth it. But we'll get into that later. So I keep on talking about things that we're going to get back into later, but I swear we're going to get back to them later. So no, what I'm talking about now, though, is I'm talking to those of you that are still standing on the sidelines. And you're hemming and you're hawing and, "Oh, is this the right time to buy? Should I wait another 6 weeks?" And you're vacillating back and forth. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If that's what you're doing, you probably don't really want to buy a house in the first place. Because you want to know how I know this? Because you didn't come off the bench during the last bottom of the market. You already missed the chance, this quote-unquote bottom you keep waiting for. So don't BS me and tell me that you're some sort of junior economist or something. I keep on hearing I should wait until next summer to buy. Well, you know what? Those folks still out there buying houses know something you don't. You buy the property, not the market. All right, now what the hell does that mean? Okay, well, let me give you an example. And this is right off of stands on basically what Ron was just talking about. It was at Saks Fifth Avenue and the bracelet, but I'm gonna put it in more kind of everyday corner market kind of terms, right? So you've probably been to a Whole Foods, right? Now let's say this Whole Foods is right next door to a Ralph's or a Vons, right? Something like that. Now most of the time, because I am not made of money, I'm gonna head over to the place where there are lower prices, usually the Vons or the Ralph's. I'm not a moron. Am I going to spend more money for almost everything just for the honor of walking home with a snazzy green canvas Whole Foods bag in my arm? No. But let's say one day I'm walking into the Ralph's and I glance over and I see that Whole Foods is selling bags of grapes for 50 cents a pound. I mean, that's a really good price. Do I say, "Oh, no, that market is way too expensive. I'm not going over there"? Once again, hell no. I'm going to go to Ralph's and do the majority of my shopping over there. And then I'll go right on over to whole paycheck and buy a few pounds of their very tasty 50 cents a pound grapes. The same goes for real estate. You buy the property, not the market. There are a lot of savvy buyers out there still finding homes they can afford. They're not sitting on the sidelines waiting for the sea to change. No, they're out there educating themselves every day in a way that these opportunities reveal themselves to them. And then they strike. And by the way, that reminds me of one of my really big frustrations about people that want to buy but are still sitting there watching the world pass them by. You tell me, "Well, I'd love to do it, but there's nothing I can afford out there." Or, "I can't qualify for a loan." Oh, really? And what exactly are you basing that on? Have you spoken to an agent like me? Have you even given Ron a call and talked to him? Has he told you that you can? Then how can you have any real idea about what your situation is? Because reality might be something completely different. And I'm going to let you in on another big secret. For buyers, you don't have to pay us for this information. You actually don't ever have to pay us at all. That comes from the seller after you move in. So what the hell do you have to lose to pick up the phone and have us run some numbers? Or for me to look around at things that may not be on Redfin or Zillow yet. Or maybe I know of areas you haven't even thought of yet. Areas that make you say, oh, I didn't know this neighborhood was here. It drives me crazy. And we love those kind of clients because they give us a call to find out stuff because we're like, cool, this sounds like someone who's actually taking the time to understand the reality of where they are. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes Ron's going to give you bad news. Or I'm going to tell you that maybe moving into Beverly Hills isn't in the cards for you when you can only afford $500,000. But isn't it better to know the actual facts? Knowledge cancels out fear. It at least cancels out ignorance. Am I right, Ron?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at having the information at your fingertips, you can go online and run every scenario and look at what the general consensus says about your particular situation. And you could paralyze yourself in fear, where you're not actually really doing anything. You're just basing your situation off of what the general populace says versus actually running the hard numbers. And when I look at a client, I look at them from the standpoint of, okay, here's what you qualify for now, right? And if that's not the number that they're looking for, then we start talking about a path of either changing the expectations or this is how we're going to work to get you into that position.
Yeah. It's an actual getting your butt off the chair and doing something instead of sitting there and going, oh, I probably can't. I can't. I read this and I read that. You could literally, it's like the snake eating itself. You'll never, ever, ever be able to get enough information to get you off the couch unless you actually do it. You actually have to do it. And the first really good step is actually calling us and finding out. We'll be happy to tell you one way or another whether you can do it. And by the way, I want to make sure everyone understands this. This is not some sort of get rich quick infomercial BS. This is an actual strategy for you to really become self-reflective enough and get the real solid information about your financial situation, to overcome your fear and become a homeowner instead of just being a perpetual spectator. So anyway, all right. So what is this podcast going to be, really? Well, we're going to be looking in depth, really drilling down into each facet of the process. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, you're going to hear things that could potentially give you an advantage. In each episode, we're planning to look at whatever the topic is, whether it's escrow, title, lending, from both sides of the fence, sort of like how Law and Order does. The whole they do the whole police work first, and then they switch sides and they go to the whole court prosecution side. That's what we're going to be doing here. We'll start with the buy side, discussing how you can get the best deals, things you should look out for when looking for a house, things to look for in inspections, things like that. Then we're going to switch gears and go the other way. We'll grab our seller's hat, put it on, and talk about how you can avoid certain pitfalls like disclosures and negotiating repairs, and end up getting the best net for your home. On each side, we'll go deep to really try and provide insight and advice that you never heard before. The last thing I want you to be thinking as you listen to this is, Jesus, I've heard all this stuff before. I will struggle. My promise to you is I will struggle with every episode to make sure that you take away incredibly valuable information that you can't get anywhere else. Another thing that I really want to do, and don't get me wrong, I'm running into very uncomfortable territory here. I want to provide a very honest look at what the real estate business is really like. For a long time now, real estate agents, realtors, there is a difference, by the way, we'll tell you about what that difference is, have earned a pretty despicable reputation. They're like a very small step above used car salesmen, with like new car salesmen as sort of running neck and neck with us. And it's incredibly well earned. Sometimes I hear stories and I go, yep, that's why everybody hates us. But I've got another maybe not so big surprise. Sometimes it's even how we're trained by our brokerages to do business in the first place. It's really, it embarrasses me. And it's this whole comedy of errors as a cast of characters. And we'll definitely go into this more in depth in later podcasts, but just to give you a little bit of a taste, there are basically There are basically three types of agents. First, there's what I call the WA or a weak agent. Generally, they're the young and inexperienced agent. They just haven't been through enough deals, or they never had a good mentor, or they haven't been in the trenches long enough to really have gotten any kind of seasoning. Or even worse, they just don't care about being informed or knowing about how things work. They don't learn about their area or how to analyze comps so that they can add value to your home search or your home sale. They just passed the agent exam by the hair of their chinny chin chin, right? These type of agents can be really dangerous to you and can definitely end up costing you money and a lot of hassles. They make for a very stressful transaction. Then the second type of agent is what I call an SA or a salesman agent, and you probably know the type. you watch $1 Million Listing, those other TV shows, and they wear the totally slick suits and have perfectly shaved stubble and perfectly waxed Jaguars. And by the way, they may have lots of knowledge, but it really becomes a question of, are they really using that knowledge for your best interests? Or is it to get the best deal or bottom line for them? I mean, after you sign the listing agreement with them, are they doing the hard work? Are they there for all the inspections? For the photo shoots, are they moving furniture around to get the best shot? Are they making phone calls to your lender to make sure contingencies are hit on time? Or did they just make the deal and run, right? Is there some quote-unquote team made up of usually WAs, by the way, in the background doing the work for him or her? While this type of agent is slightly better than the WA, they're still dangerous to you in other ways. And we'll get into that in the future podcast. And the last type of agent is what I call the PA, or the protector agent. This is the type of agent you should always be looking for. They're the ones that not only take care of issues, but they take the time to make sure you understand why they're even issues in the first place. They have a portfolio of transactions behind them and have heard about most, if not all, of the pitfalls that might lie upon the road ahead. Every transaction is different and has its own moving parts, but generally the PA knows how the engine works. And even when there are unique and crazy curveballs, they can find the best way to solve the problem and make sure you stay protected. I mean, I know I'm a protector agent because I'm looking out for problems before they even become problems. If we're going to breeze past a contingency during escrow, you bet your butt I'm going to see it coming a mile away and be trying to fix the issue before it kills the deal and makes everybody's life miserable. So, look, my ultimate goal, what I want to achieve here, and I think what Ron wants to achieve here as well, is that when it comes to picking an agent or a lender, I want to give you the knowledge and ability to really see through their mindset and find an agent or loan broker that is truly looking out for your best interest. Look, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I do think there needs to be a real self-reflectiveness in terms of agents really coming to terms with how we are perceived by Joe home buyer or Josephine home seller. When I'm with my clients, I don't consider myself a salesman, like at all. I want to be more like a professional with them, more like a doctor or a lawyer than any kind of hey, can I help you today? BS salesman. I wear a completely different hat when I'm with my clients. I mean, yes, if I'm selling your house, I need to market or sell your property, or if I'm trying to get you into your dream house, when there are 10 other offers, I'm trying to sell you and your offer, but I should never be a salesman to my client. You're the person I work for. You're my boss. I'm supposed to advise you to the best of my ability, and then you tell me what to do. So we'll discuss this a lot more along the way too.
Tom, you bring up a good point because there's two types of professionals out there. You have professionals that are transaction-oriented, which means they will do anything to close the deal.
Right.
It's ABC.
Yeah.
Right? It's Glengarry Glen Ross.
Right.
Always be closing.
Yeah.
But then you have those professionals like Tom and myself, we're relationship focused. We're looking out for your interest, and we're always thinking of the long term because we want to help you, we want to help your family, your colleagues, what have you. So if you're looking at a particular home and it's not going to be a fit, and we know that, we're not going to be pushing you into anything.
Right. And it's I literally had this exact same conversation with all my clients where I basically say, I'm not trying to sell you this house. I'm trying to sell you the house 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. That's what we're talking about here. It's not in my best interest, by the way, to just sell you this, like do everything I can to hard pressure you to buy a house that I don't know if I can do it, because all you're going to do is be thinking about, that Tom, he just kept pushing and kept pushing, and I would never go back to him again. I would never recommend. No. I want you to, when you walk into that house, I want you to have a feeling of, I'm home. I'm home. This feels great. That Tom. That's really what I'm looking for. I want to hear Tom associated with that amazing feeling you have about walking into that house. And I think that works the best for anybody involved in that transaction.
Absolutely.
And by the way, and while we're talking about like the high pressure thing and everything, I was thinking about this the other day. Have you? And I'm talking to Ron because I don't know if he's here. Have you ever heard the utter exasperation of a homeowner after their listing expires?
Oh yes.
Right. If you don't know what that means, when a home is put on the market and doesn't sell in 90, 120 days, whatever days it says in the contract between the agent and the seller, it's then considered to be quote unquote expired, and it's up for grabs. Any agent can come in and try to get the listing again. Oh boy, do they come! Holy moly, these poor homeowners. Look, they've already experienced the humiliation of the market rejecting their home for whatever reason, like whether there wasn't enough marketing or they just didn't want to put in the resources to change the crazy pink walls in the living room to some color that didn't make people throw up when they looked at it, or more than likely you just didn't listen to the agent and priced it way too high, right? But for whatever reason, your dream of packing up and moving to Bermuda has been totally showered, and then what happens, Ron?
Yeah. So what happens is it's in the new realtor's handbook. You get barraged by expired listings. Mm-hmm. There's the term door knocking, where essentially you assault everybody in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, they literally get inundated with a barrage of phone calls from low-life WAs and SAs, and they get easily 50 to 60 phone calls all in one day. Like, they come out of the woodwork. It's like a zombie movie. I've been in places, brokerages, right, where they call the receptionist. They finally call the receptionist at the front desk, and they plead for the calls to stop. I mean, it's disgraceful. And we wonder why we have such a horrible reputation as human scum. It's ridiculous. And it's like the crowd never stops. But I mean, look, I take a look at that stuff, and it really makes me totally understand why people want to even nix real estate agents out of the mix completely, right? I mean, I've got Zillow and Redfin. They give valuations. They tell me what's for sale. I mean, why do I need an agent anymore? How are real estate agents not just a middleman? That does X, Y, or Z when I could do X, Y, or Z on this here smartphone of mine? When is someone going to come along and disrupt or Uberify the real estate business? Well, okay, right? Point taken. But listen, two things. First, speaking for real estate agents, we really need to listen to that. That means that people either think of us as unnecessary at best or complete a-holes at worst. We are doing such a horrible job with how we deal with our clients or potential clients that they just don't want to deal with us at all. They want to cut us out of the process completely. And the second thing, really, the other side of that coin is that not only are we horrible, but we're not doing a good enough job letting them know what value we do bring to them. And by the way, we do bring value, an enormous amount of value. It just may not be in the way that they necessarily expect. There was an incredible article I read the other day on Inman.com. If you don't know what that is, it's a website mostly for folks in the real estate business like me and Ron. And actually, it's more like this article was more like a transcript from a presentation by a guy named Jed Carlson from a company called AdWorks, and he was talking about this exact stuff. And he was comparing real estate to other businesses that had, gone through the quote unquote disruption. His big example was the music industry, where, basically Napster came along and changed the way that we think about music. Before, when you wanted to hear your, the favorite song that you had, that you wanted, you had to go out and buy this big black disc called an album or a CD, and you couldn't just have the one song you wanted, right? You needed 10 other, not so great songs that came along with it. But like with Napster, you could choose the one single you wanted and listen to it as many times as you wanted. So he started thinking, if technology like this could disrupt an industry like the music business, could things like Zillow or Redfin, et cetera, do the same with real estate? So he was reading an article. So I'm reading an article of a guy who was reading an article, but from an industry expert who was asked, if you could boil down what a service provider really does for the client, what would it be? And this is what he said. The guy said. I'm gonna read it here. I think it's three things. The first one is they help reduce the risk. They reduce the risk of the transaction. The second one is they help carry the load, grunt work, leg work, all that stuff. And the third one is they comfort the client along the way. Now, it sounds exactly what a real estate agent should be doing. Funny thing, he wasn't talking about real estate agents. The guy was an expert in mountain climbing, and he was talking about Sherpa mountain guides. I'm going to read from the transcript here because what he says, I think, is very important. So listen up. He says, now, for those of you who don't know what a Sherpa is, what they are a culture of about 50,000 people that live in eastern Nepal, and they're famous for their hard work ethic and being acclimated to high altitude. And a lot of them make their living taking climbers up Mount Everest and K2, the most dangerous mountains in the world. So the Sherpa, I think, make a great analogy to the real estate agent in a lot of ways because they share an eerily similar set of core value propositions, right? Reduce risk, carry the load, comfort the client, end quote. So that's what real estate agents really sell, confidence. You're going through one of the biggest purchases or sales, if you're a seller, in your life. You want someone who has been up the mountain enough time so they know when there's an outcropping that is extra slippery or, oh, those clouds on the horizon are looking pretty scary over there. We should probably camp out here for the night. And then this guy, Jed, goes on to say, and he's talking about the role of the real estate agent here, talking to their client, quote, I'm going to take you through the most difficult and treacherous and biggest transaction of your life. I cannot guarantee it will be painless or easy, but it is my job to protect you, there's that word protect, you during the process and make you as comfortable as I can. My experience will prevent errors. And when something unexpected comes up, we're going to benefit from my experience. Listen, I've got your back all the way through the process, even beyond the close, until you are satisfied. I am your Sherpa. So when you tell us that you can find the house on Zillow, awesome. That means we can save time finding you a place. I mean, but if all you think a real estate agent is a dog running around to find you a bone, you're mistaken. That's not where my value is. An agent's value is being your Sherpa, guiding you up the mountain, doing some of the grunt work. And if the weather turns bad, as it does sometimes in a real estate transaction, you want them to have enough experience and knowledge to guide you to a safe place. And that's also what I'm hoping to do here. I want to help guide all of you up that rocky slope of buying or selling a home. Remember, it doesn't have to be scary. I mean, not if you know where the handholds are or the footholds are. And I'm going to help you find where they are, guiding you, being your Sherpa. And whomever you choose to be your agent will take you the rest of the way,
Tom, you bring up a really good point. I really, really like this. And, professionals like us being Sherpas, I think a very important piece to that is also transparency. We want our clients to share everything and what's going on. They don't necessarily have to share everything with everybody in the transaction, right? Yeah. But at least with us, because what it helps is it actually helps us create a path. So when we find, just like you're hiring a Sherpa to take you up a mountain, if you have a heart condition, that's probably something a Sherpa would want to know.
I was literally about to say, if you like have asthma or something like that, you're probably going to want to tell the Sherpa that I don't know if I can make it up this mountain.
Exactly. Or if you're afraid of heights, right? So probably, you might want to reconsider. But, those are things that, once we know this information, knowledge is power. So being transparent. If you're going to go on vacation a week before we close escrow, well, these are things we need to know because we need to make sure that we lay out the path. And that just helps us navigate and help.
Well, and to really, and hopefully not to belabor the whole Sherpa analogy, we're basically, if you have these issues, well, then we have to pack differently. I mean, we literally have to. If you have a heart condition, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna have adrenaline or some sort of defibrillator inside of our back, just in case that somehow you start clutching your chest up on, at 8,000 feet.
And it's much easier to plan for this before we set foot on the mountain.
Right. Exactly.
So when you're in the middle of escrow, okay, yes, it's good to know if these things pop up, but it's a lot easier to know all of this in advance before we're helping you with your offer and helping you get into escrow and everything else, because it helps us plan and strategize way in advance because we don't have the clock.
Right.
We don't have the gun pointed at our heads. So
right. Great. So look here, I'm going to be closing up here, and basically what I'm closing up with is and what I'm calling my 10 commandments for this podcast. The first one, commandment number 1, I will tell you the truth once a week, even if it hurts me. Okay. What does that mean? Well, that means total honesty. If you need to know something as a buyer or a seller, my duty is to let you know, even if it's counter to my best interest. It's the podcast version of fiduciary duty, basically. But here's the other side of that coin. We were just talking about with Ron, I'm going to ask you to be honest about things too. If you're going to take a bigger role in finding your home or selling your home, then you need to hear when you're screwing up too. I'm not going to coddle you here. This is about you learning the most you can and then turning around and taking action effectively, losing your fear and taking action effectively. If I hurt your feelings in any way, please try not to take it personally. But there's a chance it's going to happen. Next, commandment number 2. I'm going to throw more value at you than you could ever need in this podcast. In this podcast, you will hear everything, the kitchen and the sink. There are times where it will be very kind of inside pool and nerdy and maybe too technical, but I think it's important for you to hear it in order to get the whole picture. And in between, you'll find the things that resonate with you and then you can use personally. Commandment number 3, every episode will have original information and perspective that you can't find anywhere else. So basically, if you say, I could have gone on the internet and looked that up, I and Ron have failed, and I definitely want to hear about it. Commandment number 4, I'm going to answer your questions. If you have anything specific you want to hear about, do not hesitate to email me at tom@clarifiedrealty.com, and I will be happy to answer it for you. But don't be surprised if you hear it on the next episode of the podcast. If you're asking a question, then somebody else is probably asking that question too. Commandment number 5, shenanigans. I am going to be on the lookout for all the latest shenanigans and cons that you need to be on the lookout for in the market. Your protector agent should be looking out for these too, but I'm going to try to do all I can to let you know before you get burned or harmed in any way. Commandment number 6, you will learn ways to hold your agent and other real estate professionals accountable. What should you expect for the commission you pay? What behavior and ethics should a protector agent personify? Each episode will include specific things you should be looking for when you're working with them. Commandment number 7, I will introduce you to incredible experts in the field. When I have a guest, they will be vetted to make sure that they truly know what they're talking about and are professionals that I consider to be the best in the business. And you will hear amazing advice you won't hear anywhere else straight from their own mouths. Commandment number 8, and this is an important one, I'm going to be learning right along with you. And that's going to be one of my big criteria when planning these podcasts. Have I heard that stuff before? Is it new to me? And I've been doing this a while. There's probably a good chance you guys haven't heard it either if I haven't heard it. Commandment number 9 is that I'm always listening. If you have something to say, whether it's some way this podcast can improve or become better, I want to hear about it. I want to read your comments. We're going to be building this plane mid-flight, and I always want to hear ways to make it better. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm leaving commandment number 10 open. It's going to stay empty in the off chance that once you hear this, if there's some way that the listener has a way to make this show better and more useful to each other, then maybe we might have a commandment number 10. Because in the end, it's my show, but ultimately it's for all of you. And I can't wait to see everyone get involved and do what you can to make it even better. So that's just a small glimpse at what I really hope to achieve with this podcast. I think that if you listen to these podcast episodes, I'm going to consider it a success. If you go into your first home purchase or your first home sale and say, hey, that wasn't so scary. I can do this. I got this. So, Ron, you got anything else you want to add here?
No, I think you definitely covered it. I'm really excited to hear everyone's responses and feedback. And I mean, the ultimate joy is listening to someone who at first thought they didn't qualify or thought, I can't buy a home. And they've been turned down in the past. And then ultimately, through the right resources, they come out at the other end, and we get to celebrate that. So that's what I'm most looking forward to.
It's an incredible feeling, and it's literally like I can only compare it to, I'm not I'm not a drug addict, but I can only compare it to a drug. I mean, I love the feeling of helping people to get into homes, and if I can help any of you in that way in terms of giving you information and making the process smoother, this is going to be a success. So thank you again for listening. I'm begging you to not let this be it. I appreciate that you've taken your precious time to listen to this podcast, but I hope you'll come along for the ride. We'll have new episodes each week, all packed to the rafters with great information. Listen to the podcast, interact with other listeners, and let's make this a truly amazing and useful experience for everyone. I want to thank Ron and his company Guaranteed Rate for letting us record our podcast in their lovely offices here in Pasadena. If you want to get more information or ask me questions, please email me at tom@clarifiedrealty.com. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. And I am on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram. My call sign is @ClarifiedRealty. And please check out our Clarified Realty page on Facebook. I beg of you, please, please, please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comments section on our page. As Gary Vaynerchuk likes to say, feedback is my oxygen. So I want to hear what you all are saying. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. And please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. We'll also leave a link to the song in the credits if we can. They rock so freaking hard, it makes my teeth hurt. Go check them out for amazing tunes. And just a little disclaimer, Ron and I are licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate. My MLS number, license number is 0171-5353. Ron's is...
Guaranteed Rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. And that's about it. Ron, you good?
Good.
All right, thanks for coming by, everybody. And remember, the greatest feeling is making someone feel at home. Take care, and we'll see you next week.